Okay, hopefully this is working. Hello, everyone. I thought I would do something a little bit different this week instead of our paper packet. So I wanted to go back through, and I'm sure this is everyone's favorite chapter. Dun, dun, dun. The chapter 3, organic chemistry, macromolecules, functional groups, all those things. So let me make myself a little smaller here. Just looking back, first of all, I hope everybody's doing okay. I know this is really crazy. If you didn't see my other little welcome video, just trying to check in, make sure everybody's doing well. I know there's a lot of stuff going on. So if there's something I can help you with, if you need to talk to somebody, shoot me an email. We'll figure something out, but definitely reach out if you guys need help. With that said, one of the things that we wanted to do was we wanted to make sure everybody was staying fresh on things. Okay, so I know a lot of teachers might be doing things differently. I think we're all just figuring it out. I hope that the Google Classroom is working out okay. Seems a lot of people are figuring things out quite a bit. So, sorry, my phone just recognized that I said its favorite word. And anyway, so my hope is that one of the things that we're going to look for the future, many of you are going to be going on to chemistry. And so the chapters that we missed, maybe on evolution, maybe on some of the end of genetics, is probably not going to impact you a ton in chemistry. But one thing that can help you is to go back through and look at these organic chapters. These are really important. So with that, I taped one of these already and it took me a little longer. So I'm going to try to go through this fairly quickly. I'm also going to take a video of maybe us doing the lab. If you remember, the macromolecules, the milk lab. That's something you guys can do at home. Now, if you're lactose intolerant and you have no milk, there's all kinds of stuff, all kinds of other videos. You can watch my video. You can try different substances besides milk and see what happens. But that might be something fun to do. I know many of you are probably going to be babysitting your little siblings. Might be something to do with them as well. All right, so let's go through this and I'll have that separate video. Let's make sure this works okay here. Great. Okay, one of the big impacts was carbon. Okay, this whole chapter had to do with carbon. And if you remember, during this chapter, I said, let's make sure we focus on these because we're going to be going through these materials and using them in many chapters. And I think you probably were able to buy into that at some point. So these are still on the wiki. I'm still using that kind of as a file sharing, file hosting area. So if you want to download these again or watch this video over, I'm going to explain the whole chapter in hopefully around 10 minutes or less, which really, what else are you going to be doing, right? We're all at home. So we said organic. Now, when the world thinks about organic, or when you hear that in society, a lot of times what we think of is no pesticides, or this is green technology. Maybe you'll go to the co-op at Carbondale, and they've got organic this and organic this, and they have the recycled toilet paper, which I'm sure with the whole toilet paper shortage that we have right now, beggars can't be choosers. But hopefully you're well stocked with toilet paper and you don't have to use organic recycled. But in the chemistry sense, organic really means the presence of carbon, okay? So the big things here, 4 valence electrons and needs to bond 4 times. Double and triple bonds, we talked about that. Okay, so when we look at this, this is the structural formula. You'll be doing more of these in chemistry next year if you take chemistry, and if not, you might take it your junior, senior year, or you might just take it in college. But we spent a lot of time talking about this, and each one of these lines represents 2 electrons. Remember, it wants 8 in its outer shell. Okay, don't want to spend a whole lot of time on hydrocarbons, but in the news right now, gasoline is cheap. Okay, there's far less demand. I haven't filled up my car in probably a month because it's been sitting in the garage. It's got a nice layer of dust on it. Okay, but right now gas is cheap because of supply and demand. Gasoline and oil are hydrocarbons, a large proportion of carbon to hydrogen bonds, which carries a lot of energy. Okay, so here's some examples. Again, not our main focus in going back and looking at this. If you remember, this was our main focus for this chapter, and we use these throughout the rest of many, many more chapters. Hydroxyl groups, carbonyl, carboxyls, amino groups, phosphates, and the methyl we said was a little different because it was nonpolar. Here's another look at those. Okay, what these do is they change the molecule's function by reacting in characteristic ways. So you add that OH onto methane, and now you have methanol. Okay, you add it onto ethane, and now you have ethanol. And so it changes it into an alcohol. That's just one example. They're polar, the ones that we've talked about, those 5 main ones. They're water-loving, and they're soluble. Okay, so let me move me here real quickly. That works. Okay, so the hydroxyl is the alcohols. Carbonyls, aldehydes and ketones. Remember, you didn't need to know the difference, but then carboxyl changed things to acid. So we have carboxylic acid. The amines, these were the ones that were another part. So remember, the amino acids have an amine group on one side and the carboxyl group on the other side, and that's what gives them their characteristics. They are amino acids. And then finally, the phosphates. You do not need to memorize this conformation, but we spent a lot of time talking about ATP in 3 or 4 chapters. ATP. Methyl is the last one. Okay, I'll move me out of the way again here. Polymers, remember we did that polymer snow. I think we looked at some different types of things with the polymer foam, not the snow, and we poured the little bits that represented the monomers, and then all of a sudden it grew and it expanded into foam. Maybe you've ordered some things. I know we've ordered a lot of different things from Amazon. This fancy little microphone here to make things better and some other stuff. Okay, so if it came in some foam, it might have been that expanding foam. That was the representation for polymers. If you wanted to get, if you get bored on YouTube, look up some elephant toothpaste or expanding foam experiments. There's a lot of cool stuff out there. Again, I know I'm going quickly. I just didn't want you to have to watch an hour of me just talking. Unless you wanted to, you can watch it again, or I can make more. Hydrolysis, hydro, water, lysis, remember, means to split. So that's when water is added and it causes it to split apart because part of the water molecule goes to one side and the other part goes to the other side. That's hydrolysis, hydrolysis. Dehydration, when you're dehydrated, you lose water. And so that's what's going on with these reactions is we take these one large polymer and dehydrate it. So we're taking the water out, okay? And this is when, it's when the polymers are formed. Hydrolysis is when they're broken apart. The polymers are formed, the water is removed, and then now those two sides, let me find my webcam here, they can match together because the water was removed. Okay. And then the rest of the focus of the chapter, we're on these 4 main macromolecules. Okay, you don't need my face up here. I'll move me over. Okay, carbon, hydrogen, and eights. That's going to mean oxygen in that case. So carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen used for energy and structures. Okay, just doing a little bit here. Monosaccharides and disaccharides. Monosaccharides were really simple sugars. It's one reason why you don't want to eat too much of those is because they're very simple. Your body will assimilate them and just use the calories. Complex ones like starch or whole grains. If you remember during the chapter, we lamented quite a bit about everything being whole grain this and that. Well, that's because it's better for you. It takes a little bit more time to break down. Your body actually uses calories digesting those. Okay, so glucose and fructose form sucrose in a dehydration reaction. This is another example of glucose and glucose, and it forms it with that reaction to make maltose. The larger ones, cellulose is going to be cell walls. It's insoluble fiber. And here's what these look like. So starch is a long chain of glucose molecules. Glycogen looks very similar. And then cellulose is when these molecules combine to form very complex. Moving on to lipids. These were also large proportion of CH bonds. Remember we said the lipids were the most similar to the hydrocarbons. These will also burn. You can burn fats. They used to burn animal oils when they would have lamps. Olive oil was also important. Okay, and so these are glycerols right here and 3 fatty acid tails. Okay, so those are triglycerides, fats. They're not soluble in water, which you probably have seen before if you've ever had something where fat and water tries to mix, and salad dressing is another example. Energy storage. Unsaturated and saturated, we talked a little bit about those. Remember, saturated there's no double bonds. It can't hold anymore, like a saturated sponge. most animal fats are saturated. So if you've made a roast, Italian beef, pot roast, something like that, and then you get it out of the fridge the next day with the leftovers, you know it's got that film, that thick film of the fat, okay, because it becomes solid at room temperature. Phospholipids are in our cell membranes. We talked a lot about those in cellular respiration and photosynthesis. Those are two fatty acids to a glycerol. And steroids were another example, not just the negative connotation, but hormones and cholesterol. Okay, so you'll remember this structure here. Proteins, these were essential to life. We would have been talking a lot about amino acids in the next couple of chapters with genetics, but basically those DNA structures that we talked about the last couple chapters before spring break, they will code for amino acids, and then those amino acids then combine to form proteins. Okay, so those are the monomers, are those amino acids. And the two main types that we're talking about are structural or action. So structurals are things like your muscle, all kinds of structures in your body. And then action proteins are the ones that are going to do things. Enzymes, signal proteins, receptor proteins, defense proteins. Okay, and these were represented by the amino group and the carboxyl group. Okay, similarly to when carbohydrates formed, you have the peptide bond that forms. Water is released, so remember, you end up having the hydrogen from one and the OH from the other, that they are going to come out and form water, and that's called dehydration. And then when they're broken down in like your intestines and your digestive system is hydrolysis, hydrolysis. So water's added and breaks it down. And of course, the code of those is what's going to make the difference. The shape is going to determine the function, structural. It's also going to be, we talked a little bit about denaturation. Watched a couple videos on that. You can change the salt content. You can change the heat. When you cook eggs, it denatures it. It changes its nature. When you cook a burger or a pork chop or a piece of chicken or an egg, it's going to change what it looks like, and that's because the shape of it is changing the nature. Also, acid changes it as well. And then also, this is just a little bit of a focus, but primary, secondary, tertiary, that's just when all of these little layers will combine and form larger three-dimensional structures. Quaternary collagen was an example. Finally, of proteins, enzymes are involved in nearly all metabolic processes. If you remember the drawing that I made, I drew the mountains and grandma's house on one side and you on the other side. That's like the reaction. A lot of these wouldn't be able to occur. And so the enzyme is like the helicopter. Helicopter is going to bring you from one side to the other. It accelerates it. It allows some reactions to occur that wouldn't have been able to occur, and they're very specific. And finally, nucleic acids. This is what we left off with DNA, deoxyribonucleic and ribonucleic acid. And finally, energy in the form of ATP. Okay, it's stored in those phosphate bonds. We spend a lot of time, again, in the other chapters on cellular respiration and photosynthesis. So my hope is that a lot of this is like review to you, that you go, wow, we really did talk about these a lot. So this is a short video. Refresh yourself on those. Watch it, pause it, whatever. I'll have a little study guide that goes along with this. And then also I'll have the lab that goes with this chapter as well, with the milk. Again, if you don't have milk, I know most of you probably do have milk, but if you don't worry about it. Either borrow some from a neighbor, I guess, with proper social distancing. I don't know, maybe not. It's not the best idea. Grab some if you're going grocery shopping, but if you don't have it, watch a video, talk to your friends on Snapchat, something like that. And if you do have it, if you do have some different things, think of some things that you want to try. Maybe melted ice cream, see if that works, or try water with just a little milk mixed in, or part water if you've only got one type of milk, maybe water it down some. Food coloring, those kinds of things. And just try a few things, try temperature. Just change some different variables. In class, in the lab, remember we had lots of different types of milk fat. And remember the polar nature, when you put the soap to it, is going to change that. But I've got all that in the next video with the lab. So hope you all are doing well. Hope you actually watch this. And please let me know if there's anything that I can do to help you. All right, stay safe.